All right, so this is the second, not quite inaugural anymore. Now we are the second official podcast for the 501st. This is Light the Way. We started this about 2 weeks ago. We had our very first friend of the podcast, that's Lieutenant Colonel Beth Huddles, on with us. And then we're following her up, or she is followed up by new Lieutenant Colonel Duncan, who is here on the show with us. He's our second friend of the podcast. So I think what people are really looking for is to know a little bit about you.
Who is Lieutenant Colonel J. Duncan? Well, I'm glad to be here, first of all. I'm glad that you made time in your schedule to accommodate me. And yeah, just glad to be here to experience this here with you. So I was born in Tampa, Florida, 1982. Yeah, so I'm an 80s baby, through and through. We moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina when I was 12. So I consider Fayetteville as my hometown from elementary to college, same city. If you know anything about Fayetteville, it's the all-American city. Fayetteville is, during Vietnam, they had representation from every state in the United States that flew out of Fort Bragg. So they consider Fayetteville as the all-American city.
Oh, okay, cool, very cool.
Yeah, so they had representation from every state during the Vietnam War. So they deemed it the all-American city, and there's no surprise that I'm wearing a uniform. When you grow up in Fayetteville, Fort Bragg area, I mean, it's this strong sense of patriotism. It's just people are almost grown and, from their adolescence years to their adult years to serve in some capacity, whether it's educators, whether it's law enforcement, but a strong number, high percentage go into the military.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, what a fantastic opportunity to be, close to the military as a child and a young adult, So did you go to the Air Force Academy or through ROTC, or what was your path to where you are today?
So the path to lieutenant colonel, right? It's interesting. So my senior year, I actually enlisted in the Army. I had a few college scholarships, and my mother and stepfather decided to go through a divorce. So just being a family type of guy, I was like, you know what? What's going to get me here? Keep me in the city where I can make some money, help out my mother. So Fort Bragg being next door, it's like, hell, I'll just join the military, get stationed at Fort Bragg, and I can help out at home, plus, bring in some sort of income.
Yeah, and as we know, the military always sends you where you want to go and not where you need to be, yeah.
When you're 17 years old, that sounds great, because I was entering my senior year of college, and high school, and it just seemed like a very promising idea.
Okay, well, I mean, it clearly has turned out to be one.
So I was part of this program called Educational Talent Search. It was at the local university, Fayetteville State.
Okay.
And the director of the program, right after I swore in the first time at MEPS, I went over and told her what I did. I was like, hey, I'm going to join the military. I'm going to be a 91 kilo medical lab tech for the Army.
Very cool.
And I know I'm going to get stationed at Fort Bragg.
Right.
So she looked me up and down. She was like, absolutely not. That is not going to happen. Your grades are too solid. If you really want to help out, there's other opportunities here on the campus of Fayetteville State. Now, I remember JROTC when I was in high school.
Right.
Did it for like a semester. It really wasn't for me. Personality differences. So I was like, she pitched the idea of ROTC in college. And I could not erase the JROTC.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't get it out of my head. But she said it was money. So my whole purpose of joining was to acquire funds to help out my mother. So I'm like, money? Okay, great. And I had a full ride scholarship, academic scholarship at Fayetteville State already. I had already been accepted. So going from that, I was like, well, how do I get out of this swearing in thing? My stepfather, even though my mother and him was going through a divorce, he was a recruiter.
Okay.
So he gave me the
inside scoop.
Exactly, the inside scoop. It's like, hey, you only swore in once. It's like it's not official until you swear in and get on the bus. So just go tell your recruiter that you're not showing up. And that began my ROTC career.
Okay. And so were you Air Force ROTC?
Air Force
Air Force
ROTC.
ROTC.
Yeah. So you know, I I can respect the commander, the Air Force, the ROTC deck commander at the time, because his pitch was just so solid. He was like, "Hey, look, I don't have any money for you today."
Huh.
He was like, "But I got three things I need for you to do. I need you to pass a written test, AFOQT. I need you to go out here and show me you can run, pass your PT test, and then keep your grades solid. And if you pass a medical physical too, he's like, I'll have some money for you."
Okay, nice.
So it was just like it's a checklist. You know,
Yeah.
he put it in layman's terms, and I was like, all right, pass the QT. It's like, wow, okay. Pass the PT test. Wow, that's pretty cool. I was healthy, and GPA was solid, and man, his word, he actually gave me, more scholarship money, and I was getting a monthly stipend.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I was super excited. So that happened, and but I was playing college football too. So I was
Okay.
still kind of on
Yeah.
the fence on whether or not I wanted to do ROTC, long term, or whether or not I was gonna, make a career out of it. And then, I was walking to my freshman class on September 11th, 2001.
Uh,
Um, and I remember seeing on TV the second plane hit the tower. So again, Fort Bragg having its capabilities, traffic was backed up all the way to our university, pass, because
right.
they locked down Fort Bragg. So everyone was recalled, but they locked down the base. So traffic was backed up. I mean, they were in traffic for hours because they had to report,
Right.
and something just didn't feel right. This wasn't a one-off. Um, and if you were of age during that time, it was just that gut feeling that, wow, we've been attacked. And you can't think of a time in modern history where the nation was under attack.
Right. Exactly.
So being a freshman, a bunch of us were like, we want to go serve. Someone attacked our country. We're super patriotic. We're from Fayetteville. We got to serve our country. And our cadets like, get in the class. Like, you're not serving yet. Like, you will serve. But it's going to be a few years before you get out there to do it. And which was true. But that was my motivation. One is because I didn't really understand what all entailed with being an officer. I didn't know many of them.
Right.
I knew my commander, but that was pretty much it. Where I'm from, again, when you see, African Americans wearing the uniform, they always have stripes. And they were all on the list. I didn't know any black officers. I can tell you that now. So going through this program to become an officer, like, I couldn't conceptualize what it would be to be a lieutenant.
Really.
Yeah, so it was weird going through 3.5 years of ROTC and trying to put that in perspective, like, what is it really to be an African American officer? But got through the program. I was a biology major, pre-med, and on my birthday, December 10th, 2004, I actually commissioned. So
Oh, nice. That's
yeah,
a heck of a birthday present
I'm
right
telling
there.
you,
Yeah.
22nd, I got turned 22 years old, and had a job. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, you brought up a really interesting point, which was that while you were going through ROTC, you felt like there weren't really any diverse role models. It seems like for you,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that is on the minds of a lot of people in the Air Force right now,
Yeah.
particularly at the highest echelons. Presenting the diverse face of America in the wrapping of the uniform, I guess, because we do have a lot of diversity in the military,
Yeah.
but sometimes people don't necessarily see that. What has your experience been like coming through the military as far as, like diversity of opinions, diversity of backgrounds?
Yeah, so I guess let's look at it from a numbers game. So if you look at officers, period, there's about 66,000 officers on any given day in the that's serving active duty Air Force. Um, yeah, so there's about 66,000 active duty officers. Of those 66,000, 50,000 are white. Those are just facts. So that leaves 16,000 of all others.
Right. Which isn't really reflective of America, really.
Absolutely not. So it makes you question, and I mean, it was huge during when General Welsh was leaving and General Goldfein, and we had a D&I policy that kind of came out on the air staff that really targeted these issues. Like, where are we getting it wrong? I remember sitting in the offices with General Grosso, General Kelly, who's the former A1 and now the new A1, and talking about this exact topic. You know, how do you get in front of it? You know, how is our officer corps not really reflective of the American population? You know, blacks and the African Americans in the Air Force are about 13% of the national population, but there's less than 4,000, you know, African American officers.
Yeah.
So where are we missing the mark? And I don't think it's that we're really missing the mark. It's how do you paint that vision of an opportunity for African Americans who are coming up through the college ranks to
Right.
say, hey, service the country is something I want to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you touched on something earlier, talking about role models. You know, if they don't have the opportunity to see someone, it's hard to visualize yourself doing the same thing.
You nailed it right on the head. I mean, having a proper vision board is critical. So it's hard for me to want to be something I've never seen.
Right.
Like, if I don't know any doctors, if I can't conceptualize or see myself in a white coat walking through the halls with some stethoscope around my neck going to see patients, how can I aspire to want to do that? I have to be able to identify with this. So, again, you know, rewind it back to my my upbringing. Sure, serving in the military was always an option, but in officer capacity, I just didn't see it because, again, the majority of African Americans I knew wore stripes, and that's just a hard fact. But I guess once I commissioned, my first base was at McGee Tyson. It was a guard base. They were putting active duty on guard bases, which was different. I mean, it's kind of unique. But having such a small base, you didn't run into the diversity issue. There was kind of a balance because it was so tiny. It wasn't a high population.
Yeah.
When I got to Scott Air Force Base is when you started to see the shred out where the numbers really made a difference.
Yeah.
Larger base, larger mission, but it wasn't very diverse. And it's no swipe against the Air Force. It's just that is our fact.
Right.
So we can fast forward time because I can walk you all the way through my career, but we can fast forward time to here.
Right.
So when you look at the 501st Combat Support Wing, you know, how many African American officers do you have throughout the entire wing? 3.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, how many of our commanders? You're looking at them. Glad to be here. And again, it's just a fact that we live. It's a truth that we truly live. Now, does that mean that there's not any, you know, competence or confidence in others? Is it just kind of luck of the draw? No, it's the Air Force. It's got 3,900 total officers who happen to be African Americans. I mean, and then you have 3,900 Asians as well. So it's just the numbers are going to play out the way they are.
Yeah.
But then you talk about, you know, let's look at diversity when it comes to gender. You know, what 70, I should have the numbers. Yeah, it's like 78% that happen to be male, and then another
much lower amount of female officers.
less than so.
And, I mean, and we know the actual demographics are basically 50-50.
Yes.
You know, and the actual population.
So it's how do you get in front of this? You know, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it because I would love to see more of a reflection of the United States truly in the officer corps, and I can only speak for the officer corps because it's what I live. But how do we get to the point where we're creeping towards increasing parity across? That's a reflection of the United States.
Right.
And I think it starts at more at the grassroots level, you know, getting the word out. There used to be strong campaigns of, you know, the aim high, you see a diverse background. I know recently they're doing a strong push of women in aviation.
Oh, okay, yeah.
there's been a lot of PA work that the Air Force been investing in, with really pushing that portrait of women in aviation. I mean, you
Right.
saw the during Captain Marvel, you
That's
s-
right. Yeah, there
you
was
s-
a real big push
yeah, you
during that.
saw the PA push where you saw the women aviators, which is awesome, awesome. But I had a friend who pointed out, well, let's take it a step further within that minority class, and then, well, how many African American and Asian and Hispanic female
Yeah.
aviators do you have? And those numbers are dismal.
Mm.
Those numbers are dismal. I mean, we're still getting the first, you know, African American fighter pilot or commander. Like, we're still getting the first at how long has the Air Force been around?
Yeah.
So it's how are we getting in front of that narrative? So it's great that we're increasing our number in aviation, or yeah, women in aviation.
Right.
But how are we taking that second step and saying, hey, are we balancing that demographic? Are we recruiting from just a simple source, or are we really pushing that image out to those who may not see it as an opportunity?
Right, and actually, General Goldfein said something along those lines recently, where he's talking about blind spots.
Yep.
The blind spots that sometimes we have as leaders, where we don't necessarily recognize what's happening to, or how different people in
Yep.
our units may react to stuff and things like that. But also, I mean, I think really you brought up a good point, which is that there are a lot of civilians out there who might really do very well in the military, but have a blind spot where
Yes.
they don't see themselves in that position. And
Mhm.
I mean, I think you have a fantastic point. How do we get in front of that?
So it's again, it's a challenging task, and then of course I'm going to go off on an anecdote. But I was a ROTC instructor at Fayetteville State during my captaining years, early captaining years, and I used to drive around campus because I wanted to increase our enrollment in the program. I used to drive around and just stop people. Hey, what are you doing? What are you majoring in? Have you ever thought about Air Force ROTC? All right, and they'll come over and they'll talk to me, and I'll get phone calls from parents all the time.
Hmm.
Like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to recruit my son, my daughter? They're in college. They're going to college.
Yeah.
And at first, I used to get a little frustrated, like, oh my God, why are these parents calling me? But I realized I was facing an uphill battle because you're talking in some cases first generation college.
Right.
These are the first individuals who are going to college. So again, like when I was growing up, when I didn't have that vision of what it was to be an officer, I'm thinking that, hey, someone just go in the list. You go talk to a recruiter, you enlist, you go into the military.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that vision wasn't painted to the parents. They're thinking that they're about to be a grunt. They're getting pulled out of college, and they're just gonna go. And it wasn't that. No, you're going into professional arms
Yes.
where you're going to do more of a in a leadership capacity.